that a bird?
No, it's a plane.
Nah, man, it's Captain Kurt.
Oh, wait till you see Captain Kurt. You can be like,
You are now tuned in with Captain Kurt.
YouTube, what's good? It's your boy Captain Kurt, and we back. This time we got an interview. We sit down with SMO and we chop it up about the country rap lane. And dude's an OG. Dude's an OG, a legend in the game. He helped to create what we now have as country rap. This is a 3-part series. This is part 1. I present to you SMO.
It's a party over here. Bring your people to the other side. Take them back roads. You might want to bring your other ride. Yeah, let me get at them for a few. Check, 1, 2. Real talk, I was the black sheep of my family. Out getting money as a youngster, knew I had to be. Hanging with that older crowd, plastic bag.
What up, SMO?
What up, buddy?
Not much, man. Another day.
Glad we could finally sit down and have a conversation.
Yeah, me too, bro. I've been really looking forward into hearing all your story, because your story was on the TV, but you really didn't hear the story. You know what I'm saying? You just seen what they were trying to.
Yeah, they were showing you a version of my story, like the family friendly version.
Another day in paradise. I got my bling, I got my crib, and I'm about to go hang with my posse.
I can only imagine.
Which was the goal, right? And we'll get into it when we talk about it. But I'll tell you, there was an overall transition from not the family show to the family show.
That's crazy. Yeah, we'll get into it. All right. So first up, can you tell us about your early days of your career? How you first got into the music? What were some of the challenges that you faced while trying to blend country and rap in a way that would feel authentic to you?
Okay, so I think it's important to know that, first of all, my age, I'm 49 years old. So a lot of these guys that are doing country rap, I would say they're probably in their 30s or younger. I don't know many that are too old. And if they are, then I'm not thinking about them in this conversation. But my background is really, I just put myself 10 years ahead of everyone as far as my timeline. So the music I grew up on was much different than the music that a lot of these other guys that are in the game grew up on. Mine was a much older country.
Boys pulled down the room, filled up, filling up with law.
And it was a much older hip hop.
Can you give me a couple of examples? What were some of the hip hop?
The first hip hop I was introduced to was breakdancing music. So it wasn't even rapping. It was more it was the spinoff of disco, electric disco pop, with electronic pop. So it was breakdancing, and
it was like the skate music, right? Do 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 do. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
It was almost like disco pop, right? And then so in the 80s, I had an older brother who introduced me to everything. Most of my musical influences either came from my father or my older brother. And my father, his influence was his old country. He was in the Navy for 27 and a half years. He spent a lot of time on a boat overseas and just serving in the Navy. And his favorite thing to do on the boat was listen to old country. And that was Conway Twitty and sorry, I got something flying. Conway Twitty, Jerry Reed, the old Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings, Chris Christopherson, some of the older and some of the newer at that time. Right. I think Chris Christopherson, he wasn't that old at that time, but I remember growing up on a lot of Jerry Reed. My dad loved Jerry Reed.
Moses was a Cajun. He lived by himself in the swamp. He hunted alligator for a living. He just knock him in the head with a stone. The Louisiana.
And like he liked the humor of Jerry Reed, and he liked the cadence and how he told the story, and he just thought it was fun. And I remember riding around with him listening to 8-tracks, not cassette tapes, 8-tracks of these, these artists, and just soaking that up. And then also because my father was much older than, because my parents didn't have me until they were like, my mom was 38 and my dad was 40. So I was like one of those mistake babies where they went to Vegas and should not have, like he should have. Well, I can't say that, I wouldn't exist, but like it was one of those times where I wasn't supposed to happen. So lucky for that, I'm here. But him being older, like some of his favorite stuff also was like the 50s music, like oldies but goodies is what I think they referred to him as. Twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder where. So I also listened to a lot of that, like Johnny Be Good.
Deep down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, way back up in the woods among the evergreens.
And like like Earth Angel and Book of Love.
I wonder, who wrote the Book of Love?
We used to get these cassettes.
Old school, bro. That's
we would
old
get the
school
what was it called? Damn it! We would get the cassette tape in the mail like once every 2 weeks or once every month, and he was he was on like a Columbia membership, and they would send like this month's tape, and it would be like 1957, and it was specific stuff like. And I would just get these tapes and listen to them over and over again because I didn't have my own money, when I was a kid. And like I just got what my parents gave me. And then, like I said, I had an older brother who listened to the breakdance. He was into breakdancing. So we were watching the movie Breakin'. I was listening to Fat Boys.
Just one day that I will never forget. I got jail for something that I'll always regret.
And then like from there, it was and also at the same time he listened to rock. So it was like I was having to listen to Kiss. I remember listening to Kiss on vinyl and seeing the album cover, like the vinyl of Kiss, and thinking to myself, this is what my mom taught, because we went to church. I was like, this is what my mom's talking about when she was like the devil music. Like, this is what it looks like. Yeah,
Kiss, right? Yeah, like, with the tongue out.
Let's listen to it. Yeah. And my brother would be on that weird shit, like spinning the record backwards and stuff. He's like, listen to this. And I'm like, yo, you're tripping. So I had like, my dad and my brother influence, but then when I was able to kind of take off on my own, when I did start working, because I started working at a very young age for a neighbor who had a wood shop, and I was making my own money, like doing ceramic figurines, pouring casts, and doing cutting woodwork. So I worked in a wood shop as a kid. And I'd save my money, and I didn't have anything else I had to buy, fucking Nintendo games. So I'd buy music, and I remember buying like Hank Williams Jr. Born to Boogie.
I was stealing the show. Money to burn, and the women were pretty. It didn't take me long to learn that I was born to boogie.
I had that. I remember having that in kindergarten. And then I remember.
So you would say like country was what's your first sound, like that was like your
that
first
was like my first when I was
country.
like because I already heard my dad's country and his old music and my brother's breakdancing and his rock and roll, and then I found I ain't gonna lie, it was Hank Williams Jr. is who I found on my own, and Born to Boogie changed my life, and I was like, and if you listen to Born to Boogie, that shit ain't all the way country. Like it's like pop, rock. Born to Boogie was a shined up version.
It's like a
Yeah, it
blend.
was
Yeah,
all
it's
they
like
were
a
already blending. So like raw country, I never really got into. I was always into like this blend of like where I believe that country was a genre where you could do anything, really. Now, at that age, I never thought about mixing rap with it because I still listen to rap separate. I listen to the Fat Boys, Run DMC, Public Enemy. Um, I was that kid who grew up in the country, but embraced and loved country music and country lifestyle. But because I loved rap music so much, I embraced that shit like I thought that I was part of that culture to the point to where when I was in middle school, I would go to school with the I'm talking about the big ass jam box on my shoulder,
yeah, yeah. That's
with
dope.
the MC Hammer pants. You know what I'm saying? With the
Yep.
crotch that was down to your, they were really Aladdin pants.
To
Yeah.
your knees.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
I
yeah.
would even have like, I swear on everything, bro. I would even wear like the necklace with the African symbol on it.
Hey, that's me. B-Rad G. Hey, yo, fool. We about to have some hardcore drama go down.
You know what I'm saying? And I was like embracing this shit. I was like, yo,
Yeah, you're
I was
being a
like,
part of
this
the culture.
culture
Yeah.
is so wild, man. Like, I love it so much. And like, I went to a school, so I went to school kindergarten through sixth grade that had no black folks whatsoever. I think we had like a black teacher and maybe a black student that was in like CDC, but we didn't have,
Okay.
there was like, it was like 99%, 99.7% white. And then we moved closer to the city, but not in the city. We're still in the country. I went from a farmhouse to a river house, which was a,
Is this
yeah,
in
this is all in
Tennessee?
Middle Tennessee, right here in Shelbyville.
Okay.
This is where I've grown up. Now I was born in California in San Diego because that's where my dad was stationed in the Navy when I was born. But after I was born, my dad retired from the Navy, and this is where my mother and my father were born and raised, was in Bedford County, Tennessee. So when I was 4, they they were like, "We're not raising our son in California. Fuck that. We're going back."
Yeah, so you don't
I don't
even
even, man,
remember
I
really
remember like
anything from any
one
of that.
birthday
Yeah.
in California. It was because I made out with my neighbor and she was dressed like Wonder Woman. So like, you know, like that first weird ass memory that you don't know why you have it, but
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
it's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like making
Yeah.
out with my neighbor dressed like Wonder Woman in a doghouse is like memory number one and only from Cali. So so he moved me here when I was 4. So like this is where I grew up. And
Bro, that's crazy to think about though, because if you look at the California now, there's probably a lot of people making out in dog houses dressed
bro,
like
I'm
Wonder
telling
Woman.
you. And we were from San Diego and we were like an hour, not even an hour from the border. And I do remember there's a couple of other things I remember about being out there. I remember like, I remember my dad making a big deal about it and even talking about it back here in Tennessee about a big Klan rally march that they had through San Diego. And I remember him making my mother come inside, and because it's San Diego, you can be outside
Yeah,
all day, all
yeah.
night.
You never know,
And
right? Yeah.
him making us come inside and staying away from just all that activity. So it was still wild times out in San Diego in the late 70s. So
So that was in the 70s they were marching like that out
79,
there? That's crazy
yeah,
to think about.
79. So anyway, my sister got killed in a motorcycle wreck also around that time. And when
Sorry to
thank
hear
you.
that.
When I say my brother, he was raised as my brother, but really it's my sister's son. So he's my nephew. But my sister died when I was very young. My parents then took guardianship of him. So he was raised as my brother.
Yeah, you
We
guys
grew up
grew up
together
like
since I
brothers,
was a
right? Yeah.
kid. So, but the reality is that I had an older sister who was like a Harley girl and like loved motorcycles, loved horses, loved Elvis. And like she was way older than me. My mom had her when my mom was like 15, and my mom didn't have me till she was 38. So it was like a 27-year difference between me and my sister. And so her son was 3 years older than me. But that's how the dynamic of me having a brother. So I'm actually my father's only son, and the last of his bloodline. So because I only have daughters and I ain't having no sons, and so it ends with me. But anyway, this is where I grew up at. So for me to be embracing this African American hip hop breakdancing lifestyle, everybody in Shelbyville looked at me like, the fuck is wrong with him? You know, like I was
Yeah,
an
yeah, yeah.
outcast. I've been a black sheep from day one. Like my whole family, they didn't think I was even going to survive, much less make it out of high school. And that was the mentality that I was kind of taught growing up because, you know, I was overweight at a young age. At the age of like 10, I started getting overweight because I became addicted to food and was given the green light to like make whatever I wanted with no boundaries. So that's kind of
Well, do you think that was with having older parents? That was probably like, man, they were just
oh,
trying
they
to
were
chill,
working.
man. They got
My
to that
dad
age.
worked. He worked at
Yeah.
a Air Force base, and my mom worked for the church as a secretary.
Oh, he just
Yeah, he
retired
retired
from the
from
military
actual active
aspect of it,
duty.
from being going
Yeah, he was
overseas. Yeah,
27
right, right,
and
right.
a half years active duty, and then he graduated, got a job at Air Force Base as a Class 3 electrician, and he worked all the time, and he drank. Like my dad loved to drink, and so he would come home and he would drink, and he would watch like he would watch the news, he would watch Wheel of Fortune while we ate dinner, and then whatever shows or whatever, he would drink beer, and then he would either pass out in a recliner and mosey off to bed, or he would get up and go to bed because he was very he was a real good dude, and like he didn't fuck around. He never missed a day of work. Like he was a good hard worker.
So you would say you had an overall solid
Oh, I
household
had the
growing
best
up. Like it
household. My
wasn't.
dad was a legend. He was a fucking gangster. His nickname was Killer. My dad's nickname was Killer, and my mom's name is Mary Jane. So there's
Okay. Yeah,
no
yeah,
question
yeah.
on
Some
why I
chillin'.
turned out the way I am. My dad, my mom is
Yeah.
Killer Mary Jane. So yeah, which was, you know, was kind of what pushed me in my direction as a youngster. So I grew up as my dad's best friend when he would pop it out.
So he embraced that double
Yeah,
culture. Like I'm putting the boom box on my head. I'm wearing the baggy
he
jeans.
didn't care.
He was happy with
Yeah,
whatever
man,
you chose.
they didn't give a fuck. They let me go get my hair cut however I wanted. Like when Vanilla Ice came out, bro, I had
Yeah, you got the
motherfucking
lines.
Ice Baby
Ice
written in
baby.
my head because I had this I had a beautician that was cold blooded with the Clippers back in the 80s and the early 90s, and she would carve my shit up, and I had the motherfucking swoop over with the blonde highlights and everything, bro. I thought I was the shit. And
You were Slim Shady before Slim
that,
Shady
bro,
was
I
Slim
was like, you
Shady.
remember that Informer, that
So informer, you know, say that I'm a snowman, I go glam. I like it boom boom down. Take them on, I say that I'm a snowman.
Snow.
Na,
Yeah,
na, 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 na,
yeah.
na.
I was
Yeah.
like that dude
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Vanilla Ice and a very light skinned version of iced tea, like a lighter skin, because I
Okay.
love
So a modern day riff. You were an old school riff
yeah.
raff.
Shine blaze like a shell. Yo, Conan the Barbarian style jewels on my neck. It's the white cliff. Got a brick on my shelf. And I did it by myself.
Pretty
Basically.
much, I would accept that because Raph's he's a good dude, and that's not a bad thing to say.
No, it's not
It's
a
not a
shot
shot
at
at all.
all. No.
He's a legend. So yeah, I was a mutt. I was a blend of all these different things, and I just embraced it, man. I started performing in front of people when I was in that all white school in third grade when I was listening to Fat Boys. I remember me and one of my buddies, Mike Heflin, we took pillows and shoved them under our shirts, and like where we ate lunch was also like where they did plays and shit. There was like a stage in there, and we had the radio in there. I brought the Fat Boys tape, and we did Wipeout, and we come out with the pillows under our shirts like big fat dudes, and we perform Wipeout in front of our lunch room and shit.
Oh, so it wasn't even like a talent show. You
No,
were
it
just
was
up there
I
having
was
a good
like
old
middle of
time.
lunch, and like our teachers just didn't care. You know, they were like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
go up there and do what you want." We were like, "Oh, we're about to do Wipeout, wiping out, why? Ooh, ooh." They thought it sounded like the Beach Boys. They didn't care. Woo,
Yeah.
ooh. But we were like,
Oh, because you
oh,
guys were
oh,
singing it.
oh,
Yeah.
you know, with the back then we tried to beatbox and all that shit. Like we were cool, but I did, you know, and I did talent shows and shit. And then I was in the band. I played trumpet in middle school. I was in the drum line uh, in middle school and in high school. And then in high school, man, I just found psychedelics and just really dove into like LSD. And
Well, what do you think drove you to the music? Because like I've been like most people, you hear their story, there was trauma.
oh
There
yeah,
was something that caused them. Like I was waiting for you to say when your dad would sit at home and watch Jeopardy and whatever he would be watching, that you would there was something that a disconnect. You're like, nah, he's a great dude. He's a legend. I was like, well, what were you sitting there by yourself listening to music, cooking your own food? What, like, and there's no like there. It's just kind of like you were music off the
I
rip. Like
was,
nothing really. Yeah.
but there was a thing that happened. So
Okay.
when I was 14, I caught my first felony, and
Mm.
it was manufacturing, transporting, processing illegal bombs, and blowing up federal and private property.
Oh, mailboxes.
Sounds a lot worse than what it is. We
Yeah.
were blowing up mailboxes, and I blew up a Pepsi machine. So we also got caught for that, me and a buddy of mine. And shout out
Oh
to
boy.
shout out to my boy Andy Muehlhauser, aka Bud Turner. He has been a fucking legend from the day I met him. But me and him went out, blew up 18 mailboxes and a Pepsi machine. We got caught, got in trouble. My fucking dad beat the shit out of me because he had to buy a Pepsi machine in the fucking 90s.
Yeah, that's a couple thousand
You know,
dollars
who
probably.
knows? Full of Pepsi,
Yeah.
full of money. I don't know. We shoved a mason jar. I'm talking about like fucking 32 ounce of black powder up in where the drinks come out and what we were doing, we were braiding bottle rocket fuses, like tying them together
Oh
and
boy.
making long fuses.
Yeah.
And then like we were just making, I saw this shit on MacGyver and I was like, yo, I bet we can make these fucking little mini grenades. And they were like, let's
And you
try
made
it.
them.
But we were too young to buy black powder, so we got a senior that we knew to buy us the black powder from Walmart. Well, we wound up making front page of the local paper 2 days in a row because of all these bombings. And they were like, yo, this is crazy. Bomber strikes again. More
Oh,
evidence.
because it was
found.
happening, and then you guys would go do something else, and they were just like right on your heels
Yeah,
the
they
whole
were like,
time.
it was
That's
2 days
crazy.
that they were finding out about the damage. So for us, it was just one night. For them, it was like 5 people reported damage the first day, and then like 12 people reported damage the next day, and then the store reported, and then they started linking it together, and they were like, "Oh, somebody was on a fucking bombing spree." So the guy that bought the black powder, they got
Oh
him
man.
because they were like, "Hey, we have you buying black powder. What for?" And he was like, "Yo, these kids asked."
Oh, they had a big
Bro,
investigation going on.
TBI was there because it was like this was like bombs in the 90s, bro.
Yeah.
So and we were made these were homemade devices. These were like fucking and it's federal property. Like when it's a
Right.
mailbox, they don't fuck
Yeah.
around.
You don't even own your own mailbox.
No,
Federal
no, 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 it's
government
not
owns it.
yours.
Right. Yeah.
So we got caught, we got in trouble. Anyway, part of my punishment was I had to see this therapist. And the therapist they thought that I was going to be like the fucking bomber guy, you know what I'm saying? And they were like, let's make sure that he's not going to do this again, even bigger, like buildings. And I was like, no, 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 no. This was
They were just having
we
fun.
just
Yeah.
saw this
Seen
on
on
MacGyver,
MacGyver.
y'all. We're stoners. And I told him, I was like, yo, we
Yeah.
just smoke weed and do and like to burn shit and stuff. We're just kids, man. Like that's all it is. It's not what y'all are thinking. Anyway, they put me with
Right.
a fucking therapist, and she told me she was the first person outside of teachers that was like, have you ever tried writing things down? Like how you feel, what's on your mind, like
Like a journal.
write it down. Like if you think about blowing up mailboxes again, instead of blowing up the mailboxes, write it down. Like write the process. Instead of doing it, like how would you do it? Like write it down. So I was like,
Okay.
this bitch really wants me to write my thoughts. And I was like, my brain is twisted. I grew up on horror movies and like porn at a young age and fucking, a lot
Yeah.
of music. So I was like, turn me loose with a pen and pad and let me write anything with no boundaries. So that's what kind of tapped into my writing ability. And I started writing short stories, like she said, like me out raising hell. Like, what would I do? And then I got bored doing that because I ran out. I wasn't really raising this hell. It was just like fictional shit. Then, of course, I was trying to holler at some girls at this age, obviously, and
Right.
I started writing poetry.
Okay.
Poetry was something that I felt like I was good at. I already,
So you be writing love poems to
I
the
was,
ladies and
bro, I was
passing them out in
writing
class.
love poems on notebook paper and fancy as I could do writing, and then I would take a lighter and burn the fucking edges of the paper and make it look like some old tattered shit, and I
Yeah.
sign it with in a totally different name. Jonathan Lewis Smith III, which is my name's John Lee Smith, but I would Jonathan
You
Lewis
change it.
Smith III, like it was some
Yeah.
fucking big deal. And
Right.
yeah, I'd leave him on these girls' desks like some fucking creep. And I don't think it ever worked, but I thought I was good at it. And that then led to lyrics. I mean, I was already listening to a lot of. At this time, it's like NWA.
Straight out of Compton, crazy.
Cypress Hill.
You wanna be a rock superstar and live large, big house, 5 cars, you're in charge.
Fucking House of Pain. Snoop Dogg, like Dr. Dre, Gin and Juice.
With so much drama in the LBC, it's kind of hard being.
All the Tupac, fucking Biggie. Like we're listening to all that. So like the hip hop influence, and then also because I'm doing a lot of psychedelics, I'm smoking a lot of weed. Like I started smoking weed when I was 12. So
He said I was in by 15. I was
I was
full on
by 15,
smoker.
I was already selling weed to my friends. Like I already knew what to do. My older brother taught me what to do. So I did that. And because of my other lifestyle of being pretty much like a hippie, because I was like a redneck hip hop hippie. I know that's
Like a
weird.
gypsy.
Yeah,
Like
super
a
like a
gypsy. Yeah. Like a van gypsy. Yeah.
mad
Yeah.
mutt. And but because of that, I was also huge into Pink Floyd. Like I went to a Pink Floyd concert in 1994, ninth row on fucking acid.
Melting your face
And
off. Right.
just, I mean, like I loved that shit. The Doors.
When you're alone, women seem wicked. When you're unwanted, streets are.
Led Zeppelin. Any of the classic rock, of course, Skinner. Like Creedence, all that stuff, man. I fucking love that shit. To this day, that's really the only music that I still listen to is classic rock. I don't even fuck.
Like yacht rock,
Yeah, yacht rock,
hair bands
classic
and stuff like
rock,
that.
and
Yeah.
like 90s stoner rock. That's where I live. That's kind of
Okay.
where I'm happy. Every now and then I'll dive into a hip hop artist and find somebody that I enjoy. I mean, I'm obviously I fuck with Wolf, so I love a lot of his music, and then a lot of the other artists that are in that realm. And then I got
So from what I'm hearing though is your music was literally just you rap You listened to some country, you liked rock and roll, but it wasn't, there was no like driving influence in any which direction. It was just like whatever Smo heard, he found something. Because when I hear you say that beatbox music and the breakdance
Yeah.
and stuff or whatever, that's makes a lot of sense to me why your music is driven in the direction it is, like the hype, rah, rah energy, because you've been upbeat hip hop from jump. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
absolutely.
Uh,
Super hip hop influenced. And just really, I think the reason why it eventually morphed into country rap is just geographically where I'm from. Like I've lived on a farm since I was 4. When we moved here from Cali, we moved onto a cattle farm, and cattle farming is all I've known other than river life, being a river rat for like 8 years of my life when we lived in a river house. And I mean, when I lived on the river, I embraced that shit. I got me a
well, you said they gave you a lot of problems being this dude with the big baggy jeans on and the boom box. You know what I'm saying? Being in the river, being a cattle farmer. You know what I'm saying? Like, was there a lot of? So what I'm hearing is like your influence is kind of driven based off of
yeah,
geographics,
and
criticism a little bit too. Also, like, hey, if
domestication.
you're gonna be so hip
Yeah,
hop,
it was like my
yeah,
domestication mixed in with the criticism of who I was. Because even though I was this weird element that people were like, "What the hell?" They never really shunned me. Like my parents loved me to do. They loved when I busted out my keyboard and I would play that shit and pretend that I was like fucking Ray Charles and shit, and like pretend that I was Jerry Lee Lewis playing Great Balls of Fire. Like they love that shit. They embraced the person I was, the horror fan. Like I had horror shit all over my walls. Like because I was gonna go to school to be a special effects artist at one point. I was so into horror movies that I wanted to be like the next Tom Savini.
Sought after creators of such effects in the entire movie industry. His credits include Dawn of the Dead, Creepshow, The Burning, and a whole slew of Friday the 13th movies. Please say hello again to Mr. Tom Savini. Tom,
I wanted
you wanted to make the
Yeah, I wanted
mask
the
and the
mask.
yeah
Like
all
when
that.
something exploded, I wanted to create the blood, I wanted the gore. Like I love that shit so much that Fangoria magazine was one of the first magazines I've subscribed to as a kid. And it was just like it was a big
Okay.
part of my lifestyle. So just as much as music is who a lot of people see of me, what they don't see, and why I was so interested in to get into film is because I've always been like a movie freak my whole life. Music and movies, the visual and the audio is always, and I know why. It's because of my learning disability. Um, I have a hard time reading things and comprehending like a page of words instantly
Right.
starts moving. Like when I look at a whole page of words, the words are like shaking, and it's like I have to like
Yeah.
really work hard.
You can read it, but you
Nothing. And then
retain nothing
even when
from it.
I'm reading it, I can't. I'm like,
Yeah.
because I had my mom was the same way. She has such poor eyesight that she didn't read. So when I wasn't raised on like my parents reading to me. My mom would come into the room and put in a cassette tape of like a story and push play, and I would go to sleep listening to these audio books that were laced with the sounds and the voices of the characters. So that's how I retain information, is by audio. And then of course I'm a visual learner too. Once I got the opportunity to learn visually, like that's just how I learn. I can't like reading something and retaining that information and putting it to forward use. I struggle with. So um, I think it was also because of the way I was raised on audio education. That's why I am the way I am.
Also, I think people that are just fast mentally, like they're very energetic, very spontaneous and quick. It's just hard to sit there. I have a hard time reading. I have to read it multiple times over, and then still I miss tons of stuff. I'm like, oh man, I didn't even
You know what
catch
I
that the
gotta
first
do?
time. I think it's slowing
Here's
down
what
a
I
little bit.
learned that I had to do. I have to read it and then I have to write it down if I want to remember it. Like I
Okay.
have to read it and
Okay.
then from reading it, I have to like look at it, write it down, and then from scribing it, I think that's where my brain makes a connection with like having to read and write it down. That's whenever I'm able to remember stuff. So anytime like lyrics, I'd have to write, like, even if I type into my phone, I have to sit down and write my lyrics out on paper in order for my brain to memorize them. Isn't that
Okay.
weird?
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah, well, kind of, but it makes sense. It's like you're a hands-on
I'm
learner.
a
You need to.
learning
Yeah.
disability, ADHD or whatever it's called. But I come from a time also where ADHD wasn't a thing, and there was no medication that was given to kids in the 70s and 80s. You know,
So at that point, you're like what, 15, 16, when
yeah,
you're
like
getting into the poetry. Now you're writing music.
yeah, and then around, I'd say probably right after graduation, uh, whenever I realized, I was like, shit, that's over. Like, and now I have to do something real. And I was still writing. Like, writing was still a thing. It wasn't as much of a thing because I had so much other stuff going on. Like, I was going to school. I went to school to be uh, a welder. I went to school to be an electrician. I went to school to be uh, small engines, machine shop. I went to school to be a truck driver. I went to fucking barber and beauty school. Like I can fucking cut hair. I can color hair. I went and got
This is fresh out of high school.
yeah,
This
out
is
of high
fresh out
school,
of high
my
school.
dad, the only thing my dad gave a fuck about was me either getting a trade or getting like a job, like getting
Yeah.
an education, learning something. I went to bartending school. He didn't care what it was, just as long as it was like an effort to do something with my life. So I was just like going to all these schools. Man, I went to ITT Tech. I went to like all these schools, and none of it like felt right for me. It just didn't feel like me, and I couldn't find anything that I was happy with. And I was like working stupid ass jobs. I never really had a good job until I started pouring concrete. I was in the food industry first. In high school, I was working at the country club here in my hometown as an assistant chef. So I loved, and I had been cooking my whole life. Like I said, around the age of 10, when my parents were just like, fix what you want. And I was making like these quadruple decker grilled cheese sandwiches with bacon.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always loved cooking. So I was in the
Now at this point, are you recording any music? Is it
uh,
performing in
yeah,
front of your school you're and just your friends
fucking
and you're
off.
jumping around writing stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just fucking off. And then like 19, 20, like I kind of got into, more of like dope boy shit. I moved out of the
Okay.
house and I moved to Nashville. I thought that I was just going to hustle. Like that was my thing. I was so good and I loved hustling so much that I was just like, this is what I'm going to do, you know?
So you're just running around
Just
Nashville
yeah,
causing
running.
ruckus.
Yeah, because I've been doing it out here in the country. Like
Yeah.
we grew up. Not to incriminate myself, I don't really give a fuck. And it's nothing that most people around here don't know. But like
Probably statute of limitation.
yeah,
Anyway.
like in where I live, bro, you only had a couple of choices. You worked like with fucking walking horses. And you did some sort of farming, or you worked at the pencil mill, or you fucking sold weed, which later then became coke, which later then became ecstasy, which later,
Became it all.
became it all. And then by that time I had gotten out of all of that lifestyle, but I watched the entire evolution of my hometown go from being, beer to marijuana to cocaine and crack to ecstasy. Like even a small town like I live in, bro, I watched this whole town get turned out on ecstasy. And
So you went, and this is a country, like, okay, so you went from living in a rural town into a big city,
yeah,
and now you're like, you're full on hip hop, probably.
and I was
You're in.
only in Nashville for a short period of time. I went to Nashville with a couple of my roommates fresh out of high school. So we're 18. We're living in Nashville. Andy Muehlhauser, who I blew the fucking mailboxes up with, was one of my roommates.
Yeah.
He was going to mortician school, and we were body snatching on the side. So like I worked with him at night. We would go and like when someone would die, they would
Yeah.
call. He would get a page, and we would be getting fucked up playing video games. We'd be tripping, bro. And
Get your suits on and go pick up a body.
he'd be like, "Let's fucking go," and jump in the van and go snatch a body and take it.
At 20 years old, 20, 21 years old.
18,
Ooh,
18 years old.
18.
We were body snatching and fucking running around Nashville. I worked for like a telemarketing fucking place selling uh, Tennessee State Police stickers. You know what I'm saying? It was probably a scam.
Now, and then at that time, Nashville, hip hop is not a thing in Nashville. Like, you are even more the outcast now. You're in the middle of country music city, right? And you're like, hey,
And there was
hip hop.
hip hop. Like there was hip hop because there was
Yeah.
Haystack.
Turn they back and forgot about me. I'd be cooling in Cabo with models and bottles and money to blow. Where I was, I'd be so turned red to burn. I still ain't learned.
So
Okay.
in my high school years, right out of high school, that's when we really started to tune in to Stack, and when he started preaching to us, through his music, that's whenever shit got real because we were like, oh, hold up. Like we've heard of white dudes doing this, but no white dudes from around here. Bubba Sparks was
Really like children, I don't even know them guys. Ain't gonna be no replies. Things really don't feel the same. Oh, this some gang shit we been on.
was about the same time as well. So for us, Bubba and Haystack came at the same time. And which I think Stack came a little bit before him for us. We learned who Stack was locally, and then it was like Bubba Sparks out of Georgia. We were like, whoa, now we got Tennessee and Georgia, two white boys that are doing what we're feeling. So we were, I was heavily influenced by Stack when it came about time that I started tapping into my music when I was like 19, about 19 years old. It was whenever I came.
So now you're coming back. Now you're seeing that these people are making moves out. Cause I see you're a hustler, bro. Like listening to back when you would write your little poetry and you're burning the letter, like you weren't selling them, but that
I had a
marketability
brand.
was there because you did
Yeah.
have a brand. Or I mean, going to the baggy jeans and the boombox like that. You kind of now you're like, all right, I remember that time, and now you're kind of coming back in and you've seen dudes like Haystack and Bubba
Yeah.
Sparks kind of shaking the scene
And
up a
this
little
was
bit.
more of who we were. Like this for the first time, we're seeing, because even though we're listening to like NWA, like we're not NWA, and we're listening to like Outkast, like even though they were just over in Georgia, in Atlanta, which isn't too far, that still ain't us. We ain't Dungeon Family. Like who are we? We really didn't know who we were. We just knew that like when I started, it was me and my DJ, and we were just friends. He's a couple years younger than me. I graduated high. He was about to graduate high school. I'd already graduated, and me and this dude we linked up. He was a DJ, and I had just started writing lyrics. I had a drum machine, this old ass Boss drum machine that did 3 tracks. It did 2 drum tracks and a fucking bass line. And then I bought me a 8-track tape recorder to where I could record 8 tracks on a tape, record 8 different takes on a tape, and then mix that together. And when I figured out how to do the drum machine and the recording, bro, I was like, oh, you can't tell me shit. And I left Nashville because my roommate stiffed me on all the bills. Fuck y'all. And then I came back home. My parents were like, yeah, come on home. So I came home. I was back in the river house in the basement. And that's whenever I invested in some equipment. I was like, I'm about to write these lyrics and do these songs. And had a buddy that played the acoustic guitar, had some microphones, taught me some stuff, told me what to buy. I went and bought the shit. Radio Shack microphone, like real shitty stuff. But I was recording my own rap and my own beats on cassette tapes. And then I would go to like these parties because we're like, 19, 20 years old, me and all my friends. So we're having parties. I pull up at the party with the tape and I've already dubbed 10 copies of the tape. And I'm like, yo, pop this in. And they're playing it. It's like me rapping songs like Dope Game, where I'm like, and it's just about me in the country selling weed. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just the dumb.
Yeah. And now there's no studio involved. This is you. I remember. So it's like the little rectangular machine with the 2 tape slots, and you got the double buttons on the front. You got to hit
It's
the
like
2
the
buttons at
tape.
the same
It's
time.
like the tape version
Yes.
of this. This is like, something very
Yes.
modern, but it was like if this had a fucking
Yeah.
1995.
You could even play the tapes off of it, right? It had like a speaker on the top of it, and you could play them through it.
You didn't have to have all the studio equipment, but you had to have that shit, and you had to know how to use it. So we were pulling up, me and then so that's where I met O-Rig, is at one of these parties. I'm playing my tapes, and he's like, "Yo, I be DJing." I'm like, "Yo, we got to get together," like, because all I ever knew from the breakdancing days was the 2 turntables and the microphone. And I knew that I couldn't be a rapper without my DJ. I had to have my DJ Jazzy Jeff in order for me to be the Fresh Prince of the country. So O-Rig was that guy, and we just locked in, bro. Like, I went to his house, and he had a sampler and the Techniques turntables. He taught me, like, I can fucking juggle records. I'm dope on some turntables, like real vinyl turntables.
Well, it goes back to
shit,
that
bro. That's where I come
originating of the
from.
hip
That's
hop.
where I
Yeah,
come from.
yeah.
And so me and O-Rig was, we started making music, just experimenting. In like 99 is when we started to start to up to like 99. In 99 we started to work on, we were like, okay, let's work on a project. So in 1999, I always say that's about where my music career started, because that's when we started working on an actual project that did get released. And it took from mid 99 to the first of 2002 for us to get this album out. And it was my first album called Country Kitchen. And much like the album that came out a decade later in 2012 called Country Living.
I'm Southern by blood, not relation. Survive with a buck knife and pawpaw's gun. One hit and you're done.
The artwork was shot in front of the same building, which was the studio.
Oh, that's dope.
It's still the studio. Like this is kind of like my vocal room where I cut inside the house, but we still have a recording studio outside. And me and O-Rig, we worked a long time, man, making all of our own beats, because there was no Dub 30. There was no beats. There was no YouTube, SoundCloud. There's none of this. So you had to go out and buy the drum machine. We had the MPC 2000. We had like the Roland 909. We had the Yamaha Motif, the 32 key Motif.
Yeah, you had the real deal. You had a studio.
Yeah, we were
studio,
making beats and layering shit, and we were learning all of this as we're going. And then while he's doing that, I got the camera, and I'm like trying to figure out, take a picture. All right, get it in here. Photoshop back in the day, like Photoshop 1. And
grids and shit.
Okay, how do I do this and arch this and do this and
having to hit file, edit, and move. I remember
all that OG stuff. And then even cutting our first music video on Sony Acid. Sony Acid was it was Sony Vegas, but Acid was where we were making the beats. Did you ever hear that? Sony had a program called Acid, and you could go buy CDs that had the sounds on them, and they were loops. and then you could pull the loops over, and then you could build out these loops like in Fruity Loops, but it was like using these block files
That were already like pre-made. Yeah,
so
like
all
yeah,
you had
yeah,
to
yeah.
do was set the tempo, and then they would beat match and fall on the same tempo. But that's how we was building like these first Fruit Loop style beats. But then Sony came out with a video editing program called Vegas, and that's where we edited our first music videos. So like the Tennessee video,
We ride them 30 back roads on the finest of green with the select few.
Kicking It in Tennessee video.
Hey, it's a party over here. Bring your people to the other side. Take them back roads.
Honky tonkin' video.
Ria's running the sound, and everybody knows from miles around there's only one thing to do when the sun goes down. We like to.
So all these like old videos of mine, which was like SMO motion pictures, which I was shooting videos for other people too. I was shooting videos for Stack. I was shooting videos for like Bravo Gator. I was shooting videos for all these like Nashville rappers. You know what I'm saying? I was like the dude from the country that would come to the city and get the work done.
So at that time, country rap ain't even really like I mean, you go back to like Nappy Roots.
Yeah, it was Stack,
some of the
Nappy Roots, Bubba Sparks.
Okay.
That's what country rap was.
David Banner maybe you could
a
kind
little
of
bit
fit
Crucial
some of the,
Conflict, Smoking
Okay.
on Hey, in them. Like
Yeah.
that shit was country. Toe Down, who never gets his motherfucking flowers.
Cat 10, 2, 2, 3, I got that. Bring the whole block up, then we double back. Ruthless, like in WA. Niggas in the city love pistols.
So let me be the florist on that. Toe Down from Texas. Go look up Country Rap Tunes by Toe Down.
I've never even heard the name.
Bro, one of the OGs of country rap, bro. I'm talking about big budget with the motherfucking Dukes of Hazzard whip in the country rap song with the chains and the braids and the bitches in the barn and all that shit, bro. Like,
So originally, like do you think like what I'm hearing is country rap wasn't because I've heard a lot of people say, well, this is just where displaced rappers go to. I think it was more like y'all had a different lifestyle than what the rap
we
scene
were
was doing.
outcasts, bro.
Yeah,
We were mud.
I see it.
Like
yeah.
there was a timeline. People have to understand that there, along the timeline of our human existence, something happened in music, and I looked at it today in a different sense. About 10 years later, I was looking at the Billboard charts of 1989 and 1991, and the fucking difference in 89 and 91, or I'll say 87 and 91, is fucking Guns N' Roses versus Nirvana. Like, you think about that, that seems like a real quick change. So there was, along this timeline of existence, music did this thing where it just kind of meshed, you know, and the people who were born in a time where their parents listened to country, pop, rock, maybe even rap, or that early version of it, like that poppy breakdancing shit was open to that. Like, we're the children of a musical evolution. And some of us that just caught wind of all of that shit, not everybody was subjected to it all, but some of us very special individuals who had fathers and brothers and mothers and sisters and grandpas who, like, we got domesticated by their tastes. We became like this, like you said, like a gypsy mutt version of music. And country rap, I think, is like a byproduct of that. No different than like alternative rock. You know, I think that it's just alt rock gets credit for being different. So like, I think country rap is like it's like the Americana-esque version of alternative rock for several genres. I'd say country rap is not even just influenced by country and rap. Like country rap is highly influenced by rock. So I don't know why we wouldn't call it country rap rock. And we're not even giving rock the fucking credit that it deserves. You know,
I've always I really just stand on it's Southern hip hop. Like hip hop, you blend everything. Hip hop uses samples from rock, from
nobody
country,
wanted to
from
call it country
everything.
rap because then it gives it the segue to call it crap. I fucking can prove by a very big meeting that I attended at Warner Brothers that I did not want it to be called fucking hick hop. Like I was against that. I was like, yo, you cannot call it hick hop. And then fucking A&E, when I was with them, they just ran with it. They were like,
so you would say country rap turned when all that, when you got around and started making this music, country rap turned and took off in a direction that it never went prior to you kind of jumping on the scene.
Oh, absolutely. It had been such like a taboo-ish thing, you know, like, but at the same time, also mainstream because you think about Tim McGraw and fucking Nelly. Like, remember when that shit happened?
Cause it's all in my head. I think about it over and over again.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like people lost their fucking mind, you know.
And it's all in my head. Yeah, you're right, bro. That went crazy.
I was a DJ at a club in my hometown when that song come out, and I had to spin the fuck out of that on CD, like nonstop. People went crazy over that shit. And that's another thing. Like I was a DJ at a club for 3 years in my hometown. So like I've done so many things and I know so many people, and like, you know, in my evolution from being out here on the farm to going to Nashville, like I cut my teeth as a performer on 4th Avenue at a little venue called The Muse that was in the back end of a coffee shop called Kung Fu Coffee. All this is right on 4th Avenue, right under the interstate. And now it's a Domino's Pizza. But that right there is where the OGs of Nashville rap and some of the first, I mean, that's where I cut my teeth of coming to Nashville doing my country rap shit. Because like I said, going back to 2002, when I dropped that album, Country Kitchen, it was country rap. Like it was not country rap as it is today. But bro, I had 2 goats, a tractor on 26s and an F-150 on 24s, and me with like in some country ass shit, you know, and a couple of hay bales, and then I had 2 black dudes, 2 black girls, a Puerto Rican, and a Filipino.
It was literally just a blend of your lifestyle, just happened to land in exactly what you.
And it was a blend of us. I mean, literally, we had 2 black girls, 2 black guys, a Puerto Rican, a Filipino, and a white dude. That were all on my first album. And
that's dope to know that it started out with a blend of the cultures.
It started out and that's what I try to tell people. Country rap for me was not built off of like these closed doors and these rules. You know what I'm saying? Like that seems like some fucking man-made shit to me. Right. Country rap naturally to me felt like an open door. It was like Granny's porch. You know, it was an open door. And as long as you were respectful and wiped your feet and watched your mouth, you could come on in. You know, and especially if you were here for a good time. For me, I've always just been looking for a good time, man. And country rap.
There was part 1 of the SMO interview, man. And SMO's life is wild. We're just getting started. The things that he's gone through who would have thought breakdancing? SMO's out there breakdancing, listening to Hank Williams Jr. Yo, it's wild. And it only gets crazier. So I look forward to you guys seeing the rest of this interview. Stay tuned for part 2.
I say, who the best in the game? Captain Kurt reacts. Captain Kurt reacts. I say, who the best in the game? Captain Kurt reacts. Captain Kurt reacts. I say, who the best in the game? Captain Kurt reacts. Captain Kurt reacts. I say, who is doing big things? Captain Kurt reacts. Captain Kurt reacts. I said, who else got the cosign by the GOAT? Captain Kurt put in work. He be really about his folks. Creek squad showing up, so you know it ain't no joke. Y'all been working hard, but you don't really want no smoke. Bitch. Captain Kurt react. Captain Kurt react. Kurt react. Kurt react. Kurt react.
There it was. Part 1 of the SMO interview, man. And SMO's life is wild. We're just getting started. The things that he's gone through who would have thought breakdancing? SMO's out there breakdancing, listening to Hank Williams Jr. Yo, it's wild. And it only gets crazier. So I look forward to you guys seeing the rest of this interview. Stay tuned for part 2.
I say, who the best in the game? Captain Kurt reacts. Captain Kurt reacts. I say, who the best in the game? Captain Kurt reacts. Captain Kurt reacts. I say, who the best in the game? Captain Kurt reacts. Captain Kurt reacts. I say, who is doing big things? Captain Kurt reacts. Captain Kurt reacts. I said, who else got the cosign by the GOAT? Captain Kurt put